Okay, so put your date at the top. This is solving absolute value equations, and we're going to continue our work with absolute value. We talked about yesterday, if I have the absolute value of -4, that equals 4. But if I have the absolute value of 4, that also equals 4. So I have two different numbers that equal the same +4. So it sort of brings us to our concept here. What can I put in x's place so it equals -4? Well, we just figured that out. X can equal -4 because when I plug -4 in here, the absolute value of -4 is 4. And x can also equal +4 because if I put in +4 here, the absolute value of +4 is 4, right? Okay, same thing here with 15. What can I replace x with? Well, if I replace x with 15, that is true. The absolute value of -15 is 15. And then I can also replace it with -15, because then a negative becomes a +15, and +15, the absolute value equals 15. So again, here x has two answers, 15 and -15. Both will give you the absolute value of 15. Now let's look at this one. This says, what can I put in here so it equals -6? Well, if you look, our absolute value always gives us a positive answer. So could I put anything in here to give us -6? No way. So that is an undefined problem. So we're going to take this concept that x has two answers into more complicated equations. So if I look at this, x plus 4 equals 10. Well, hopefully you could just figure out that x is 6, right? If I do 6 plus 4 equals 10, the absolute value of 10 is 10. Now I can also, this can also be negative, so I have to figure out what the negative would be. So to do that, we take our x plus 4 and we're trying to find out what the negative is. So kind of like we did with our triangles today, when you have an entire side being taken to the negative power, you can just multiply or distribute a negative, because a negative times a negative gives us a positive. So that just changes that to x plus 4. But then don't forget this negative has to go over to this as well, and so that gives me -10. So I found out the answer when this 10 was positive. Now I have to find out the answer when this 10 is negative. So I'm going to subtract my 4, and that would give me -14. So x equals -14. Let's see if that works. If I take the absolute value and I replace x with -14, add my 4, equals 10. Well, this -14 and 4, that would give me -10. So is the absolute value of -10, 10? So our x has two values. It can be 6 and it can be -14. So basically you have to find two answers for each one of these. One for the positive and one for the negative. Let's look at one more sample here. Here I've got 2x minus 6 equals 18, absolute value. So I want to find the positive answer, but then I also want to find out when this should be -18, because that would absolute value be +18. So we'll have 2x minus 6 equals 18. So I'll solve this one by adding 6, and that would give me 24. So 2x equals 24, divide by 2, and x is 12. Let's make sure that works out right. So I'm going to rewrite my equation 2. I'm going to replace x with 12 minus 6 equals 18. These essentially act as parentheses, right? So we have order of operations. So that's 24 minus 6 equals 18, and that gives me the absolute value of 18 equals 18. So that turns out great. So here I want to get rid of that negative by multiplying everything by negative. So negative gives me a positive 2x minus 6. But then don't forget that 18 becomes negative. And if you're really looking for a shortcut, you need to understand why we do this, but we're really just taking the answer and making it negative to find the negative x. Okay? So in this case, we'll add our 6 back over, but this time 2x is going to equal negative 12. And then we divide by our 2, and x equals negative 6. And let's plug that in. So we have 2, I'm going to replace x with negative 6. Minus 6 equals 18. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12 minus 6 equals 18. And then we get absolute value of negative 18 equals 18, and that's true. So I have two answers here. I have x is 12, and I have x is negative 6. Hopefully my head's not in the way for that. Okay? All right, so to recap, right? Every absolute value equation should have two answers. You have the positive and you have the negative. You can just solve them. You should have two answers, and one should give you a positive 18 and a negative 18, but their absolute value, which will always give you a positive 18. Okay, so I'm going to have you try the next two on your own. So go ahead and we'll call this number 1. And we'll call this, oops, not what I meant to do. Make that a little bigger for you. We'll call this number 2. And that's it. You got lucky. Just 2 of them. Okay? And then we'll talk some more and spend some time on this tomorrow. Good night.